it made me kind of sad. I started to sit there and become like introspective. I was like, all right, I'm 45. I used to be spontaneous. I used to be adventurous. What happened to me?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love and growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, man, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper. And alongside me are my two co-hosts. Literally, I'm sitting right next to him, Big D, Dick Gibbert.
Good evening.
And Gene SanDeE, that's S-A-N, capital D, little E, big E, Lions.
Your breasts feel weird.
That's because they're real. In each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out our race car VHS tape rewinders and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. In the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and right now occurring as we speak, Watchmen. So be sure to check out all the information at shatontv.com. That being said, Big D, I'm in Florida. I was here for work. I went to Ross today and I bought the Glamour Vlogger kit.
Beautiful.
So that we could record in the same room. I've got my little selfie stick here so that Gene Lyons can see me in my glamour shots perspective. And we're gonna do another one of our commissions tonight.
So we are. It's nice that you're here.
Yeah.
It wasn't expected. Thank you, Gene, for being flexible. Everybody who thinks we are a polished professional podcast, if you had seen the last 45 minutes of trying to set this circus up, you would know it's anything but professional. But we're going to try to do our best here. It's when we've recorded in the same room, it's been challenging sometimes, but I feel like today we can do it.
To even call us a circus is almost giving us too much credit.
I totally agree. Well, this commission came from our good friend Emmet from Orange, and I think it's got to be Orange County, California. And he was the one who was nice enough to also commission last week. We discussed for Brody from Belfast. He did Nightmare Before Christmas. For some reason, this one, it's a movie we normally would never do. But he gave us some credit here. We had done some romantic comedies in the past, and he said, I want to see you do the 1991 LA Stories.
I hope that he's from Orange, California, and not like Orange, I don't know, New York. Because it'd be weird if he was from New York and he wants us to do LA Story. Because this movie really, truly is a movie about LA. Like, I mean, it's LA Story, obviously it's in the name, but like it's super inside baseball. Anyway, whenever we do a commission, we always ask, in addition to your $100, send us an email explaining why you spent your hard-earned dollars and sent it over to Shat the Circus over here. And Gene, you're in charge of reading that letter.
So Emmet in Orange, definitely a Southern Californian with a unique appreciation for this film, writes, thanks guys for taking me up on reviewing one of my 90s favorite comedies, LA Story. I mostly remember watching this at home on VHS and appreciating its satire of LA life. He capitalized the L in life. It has always stuck in my mind as just a flat out funny movie. I love the bubbly Sarah Jessica Parker character, and what a great matchup against the weatherman character of Steve Martin. There are so many memorable parts to the movie, from the half-calf decaf latte orders, the nose jobs, earthquakes at lunch, drive-by shootings on the freeway, and of course, Santa Monica enemas. This was the first role I had seen Sarah Jessica Parker in, and wow, she was exactly what the character needed. I hope many fans of the pod will enjoy this as much as I have over the years, and I can't wait to sit and watch again in anticipation of your commentaries too. While I don't expect this to get a huge ranking, I do hope you'll find many of the parts to be as memorable as I have. Thanks for all you do. I've been with you since season 7 of Game of Thrones, listened to all of Westworld, and dozens of movie reviews. So thank you for all that. And here's my way to give back for those hundreds of hours you've given to all of us. Shat on, Emmet in Orange.
Well, LA Story is a 1991 American satirical romantic fantasy comedy drama film written and starring Steve Martin and directed by Mick Jackson. It opened on February 10th, 1991 and made just over $6.5 million in the opening weekend. It went on to gross domestically $28.862 million. The cumulative worldwide gross is also $28.862 million because no one outside of LA went to go see this movie.
Yeah, I think they could have narrowed it down and actually said California gross $28,862,000. I don't think this movie translated very well. But also, I keep thinking back to like the 90s, and you think about the size of movie theaters and how many movies were out at the same time. Mm-hmm. It made $6 million opening weekend because there were like 3 movies out that week in 91. We always have to keep that in mind. There wasn't that much competition.
Yeah. Well, Harris K. Telemacher, played by Steve Martin, has the easiest job in the world. He's a TV weatherman in Los Angeles where the weather is so predictable he tapes his forecasts days in advance. Bored with his job, his life, and his relationship with longtime girlfriend Trudi, played by Marilu Henner, Harris begins to receive secret messages from an electronic freeway sign near his home, which lead him to pursue romance with a British journalist, played by Victoria Tennant, and a vapid young model, played by Sarah Jessica Parker. Martin and the film both received near unanimous praise from every major critic who embraced the film's comedy and lovingly jestful look at LA in the year since, and the movie has been voted both one of the greatest comedies ever made by the American Film Institute and one of the best LA-centric films by, get this, guys, the Los Angeles Times.
Huh.
Strange. With that being said, before we start the podcast, we always ask the question, where were you? What are your memories of this movie? We'll start with you, Big D.
So growing up, I don't know why, I really liked Steve Martin. And I think it's because he was kind of goofy. It was a lot of physical comedy. He would use his hands, and he always had a hat on. The first movie I remember.
Or an arrow through his head.
Even like when he was on Saturday Night Live. He was on Saturday Night Live 15 times. He always had a hat. There was always a prop. He was like an early Carrot Top. But I loved The Jerk. It was always on HBO. And as a kid, I shouldn't have been watching that. I mean, he's adopted by this African-American family. It's really twisted in the end. There's some assassination attempts. There's a lot of naked women. But as a kid, I loved it. Then as he went on, Father of the Bride, of course, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Three Amigos, which we have to do really soon. But I had never seen this. Never seen this. And now looking at the domestic box office, I don't know why I would have ever seen it because it probably only came out in 6 theaters. But watching this yesterday was the first time I'd ever seen it.
Can I add one Steve Martin movie from the 80s and 90s that is just absolutely perfect?
You'd say The Man with Two Brains.
No, well, that's good, but also Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Can I go to the bathroom, please? Thank you. It's so good. Come on. It's so good. Gene, have you ever seen LA Story?
Yeah, the King Bee watched this thinking he might be covering it with us. Thanks again, King Bee, for prepping for this. And he wrote me afterwards, and I said, "What'd you think of the movie?" And he said, "I like The Jerk a lot less after having seen this."
Oh, man.
Now, if you know the King Bee, The Jerk is one of his all-time favorite movies. So I felt terrible about that. But I agree with you, Big D. I was a huge fan of The Jerk growing up. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, of course. Three Amigos, to me, is in the top 3 comedies of all time. Maybe number 1, depending on my mood. But I've been told at least a dozen times that I needed to see LA Story. And every time I mentally corrected the title to LA Confidential, I'm like, oh, this dumb shit doesn't remember the name of the title, whatever. LA Confidential, which I did see and greatly enjoyed. I didn't know LA Story was an actual movie. And I had no idea it was a romantic comedy. So I do love Steve Martin. I was very excited to see this. And of course, Sarah Jessica Parker, as you said, Emmet, is an absolute knockout. So
Yeah, I thought this was the one where Steve Martin was a long-nosed fire chief chasing Daryl Hannah.
Yeah. Roxanne!
Yeah, and then I realized that's Roxanne. So I've seen bits and pieces of this movie, but never in its entirety. I think I was around 12 and it was on HBO at my grandparents' house. So I didn't quite understand like the meta inside baseball LA humor. So it was interesting to watch this as an adult. And so while I've never lived in LA, Phoenix is where LA people move when they don't have money. So you get a lot of that LA. And I've been to LA in a while, but I have a lot of friends who also live in LA. And like Gene, there's a lot of truth to what's going on here. So I'm excited to review this. With that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
Rather than do an interview with me, which would be fascinating, by the way, I thought that possibly I'd take you on a, kind of a cultural tour of LA.
Look how he's painted the blouse, sort of translucent. You can just make out her breast underneath it. When I see a painting like this, I must admit I get a little emotionally erect.
Bon appetit.
See, I'm done already, and I don't remember eating.
What's his girlfriend's name? Sheila. She's the one who's always kissing everyone hello. I hate that. I'm not kissing anyone hello anymore.
How was I in the meeting?
You were good.
Any advice?
Sure. Skipping. Skipping is the perfect compromise between running and walking. It looks too desperate if you run to a meeting.
What, she's seeing someone else?
Yes, she's going away with him.
So go away with me.
I can't. Don't you see? I would just be using you to get even with her for going away with someone else.
I don't mind.
Let's go.
Great. Woo!
Steve Martin. Did you know that the same technology used to clean up the Alaskan oil spill can also suck fat from your thighs and chin?
LA Story.
I'll have a decaf coffee.
I'll have a decaf espresso.
I'll have a double decaf cappuccino. Do you have any decaffeinated coffee ice cream?
I'll have a half double decaffeinated half cap with a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
Yeah, I'll have a twist of lemon.
I'll have a twist of lemon.
TV weatherman Harris K. Telemacher navigates LA traffic and arrives at work to don a safari hat and perform his wacky weather report. He picks up his girlfriend Trudi and shoots at other armed drivers on the way to a lunch date. The couple shows up late at the restaurant and they are eventually joined by talent agent Frank Swan and Roland Mackey, a British art dealer. Roland's ex-wife Sarah McDowell shows up even later. She introduces herself as a journalist writing an article about Los Angeles for the London Times. An earthquake erupts and everyone but Sarah ignores it. Leaving the restaurant, Roland tries to rekindle his romance with Sarah, but she says she likes their relationship as it is.
So as we're watching the opening of this film, you see a lot of weird things happening. You got the street crossing signs that say, like, walk, man. And you've got the people shooting each other in traffic. Steve Martin's driving through people's yards and they're just waving passively at him. And I'm like, okay, so this isn't grounded in reality. He even says that this story is, mostly true. You can say this movie is absurdist. And then I'm like, oh, I get it. No, it's actually surrealist. And then I was like, okay, no, I get it. It's symbolic in its social commentary. And then finally, after, I don't know, about 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, I figured out what this movie is about. It is the distilled cinematic product of all of Hollywood's cocaine bottled into 90 minutes. It's like they took a kilo of Colombian white and sat it down at a typewriter and they're like, write a movie. And for me, it was almost too much. Like my brain needed moments during the movie to breathe and hide in a safe space. Just go, fucking calm down for a second. Let me figure this out.
So I've never been to LA. It's one of the few places, that I've still yet to go. And I have to go with Eugene and go to some of the clubs. But as someone who's never been to LA, this movie isn't at all remotely relevant to me. It doesn't speak to anyone outside of Los Angeles. I understand it's a fantasy, it's a satire of the LA lifestyle, but it's not even done in a way that anyone can get into. It's just completely self-indulgent. It's hard for me to connect with this because I've never lived there. And in the beginning, I'm like, oh, fuck, is this whole movie going to be nothing but a big circle jerk for people in LA? Be like, oh, wow, our lives are so funny and so trendy.
Well, I got the feeling like, again, we talked about how big of fans we are of Steve Martin. Have you ever listened to his audiobook, Born Standing Up?
No.
He narrates it, and Steve Martin's a very intelligent individual. but he's also on that edge of being pretentious. And I don't know if it's as he's gotten older, he's a little self-absorbed, and it borders on the line of being pretentious, even though it's about pretension in Hollywood. And I think that was my biggest issue with it. Like, do you remember the movie Garden State with Zach Braff? It came out like in 2004. Okay. In the beginning of Garden State, it shows kind of like he's there, he's trying to be an actor, and then his mom dies and he has to go back to New Jersey, and he's kind of depressed in LA. But there's the opening scene of where he's going to the clubs or he's at the restaurant with his friends and they're all ordering Red Bull and vodka. And that's almost like a modern day equivalent, I think, of what is happening here, where they're all kind of ordering their decaf with lemon, and then all the rest of the people order lemon, even though they were all ordering off menu items before. And that's what kind of reminded me of. And I wonder, Gene, you talked about like how it's satirical and whimsical and cocaine on a typewriter, but I wonder if it's just a little bit outdated, because the script, like, it's a really unique idea, but I wonder if they were reduced to the limitations of the budget and what they had at the time. And I wonder if maybe now today they could actually make this movie as it was designed to do.
Oh, I don't think it had anything to do with budget, because they were doing all kinds of shit that I was like, that's an unnecessary expense. They got the flying hot dog. They got Steve Martin driving a fucking car like up and down stairs. Like there was a lot of money spent in this movie. I'm thinking about 1991, the custom sign. You know, they went all out with this, and it still ended up being dated.
Yeah, they had the marble lions at the end that are like nodding as they're walking by as kids and they're about to kiss. Like, they had special effects you need, but for me, I think it fails as a satire. If you're going to make a satire about LA, it can't be all just the superficial cute stuff that everybody who lives in LA loves. Oh, freeway traffic sucks. Oh, restaurants like Le Idiot, they suck. Or the stupid conversations or plastic surgery. Or, you know, I wanted it to be something a little more real. I understand they just gloss over freeway violence. Like, I thought of it later. I'm like, dudes are waving a gun around, or the people at the ATM, that there's two lines, one of them for people taking money out, one of them for getting robbed. But I would have rather had it be something that was a little harder on LA. Make it actually make fun of them. I want to see the asshole A-list actor. I want to see some producer who's a bit creepy. I want to see the average person struggling to make money. I think that would have been more realistic. But this just seemed like they were going to handle LA with kid gloves so that you didn't piss anybody off.
This was this was the troubles of rich white celebrities in LA.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the movie. It's like someone who drinks kombucha and does yoga and doesn't really have to work only between the hours of 11 and 1. I don't know. It's just, and I guess that's the point of the movie, but somehow it falls flat at times. And I don't know why.
I think the problem is that all the jokes are half done.
Okay.
So they're like, hey, you know, it'd be funny is their stationary bikes in the park. And then we'll have a sign that says no running. Right. And you're like, okay. They're like, on to the next joke. They're like, all right. And so it's like nothing ever gets developed. It's just like gag, and it's all a bunch of sight gags. But what did work for me was Steve Martin, and especially when he was doing the wacky weather. Like, I couldn't help but get sucked in by that, and I appreciate it. And I love a wacky weatherman. It's one of my favorite things about TV is like when you've got it's one of the great things about the internet is you don't have to live in all these little cities to see their wacky weathermen, and you'll see these occasional clips on YouTube. I found myself chuckling at Steve Martin's forecast, in the safari hat. And I think the best part about it was that he's almost angry when he's doing the news. And that's what makes it like so entertaining. He's just slapping shit on the board and things are falling apart. And I did want to send a special shout out to our favorite wacky weatherman and friend of the pod, Andrew Buckmichael, who is a meteorologist for Good Day Columbus. He's a big fan of the pod, and I love watching him work. He's actually won Emmys as well.
Yeah, so Andrew, I'm sorry I'm going to say this, but why the fuck are there still meteorologists on local TV? Why? We all have apps. We have our phone. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to go sit down in front of the TV and watch the local weather. I'm not going to do that. In Florida, the only time you watch the local weather is when the hurricane's coming. You know it's coming, and they all get fired up, and they get into their hurricane 24-hour broadcast. But, dude, who's watching this? And a weather channel? Do I need a channel dedicated to weather?
Well, the problem, have you seen, I think John Oliver did a whole bit on this, but have you seen the weather, like the graphics that they're doing for like the extreme weather now? They're doing like the CGI graphics where like
the house is
blowing up and like the guy is all flooded. It's coming up to his chest.
Yeah.
That's a little much.
I was watching that and Emma walked in and she was like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're showing what a storm could do." She's like, Will that happen to our house?" I'm like, No. Go in the other room.
I like the way I have to send away the kids when the Weather Channel is on.
Yeah.
But like one of the first things you're introduced to is Steve Martin's girlfriend, Trudi. And as he's going over there, he's waiting for her to get ready. And this woman is just the epitome of worst girlfriends. Have you ever dated a Trudi in your life? And if so, what were like the worst qualities?
Well, I know you have. But the thing is, I was thinking this too about like the Trudi character, and she's obviously intentionally built to be awful so that he's excited when she's gone. But Harris isn't like the boyfriend of the year either. Like, he's clearly checking out the chick across the table. He's got one foot out the door before the breakup even happens. He's just too much of a coward to get out of it.
It's true, I guess. I don't know, but like sometimes when you're trapped in those relationships with Trudi, you just kind of feel like this is the best as your life can get. And you don't work that much. You have a pretty good job, it pays you pretty well, but like you're not really fulfilled. And you think, well, maybe this relationship fulfills me, but then you just get annoyed the entire time. So when you find someone that's kind of interesting, you're like, maybe my life could be that, but I'm too scared to do anything about it.
What terrifies me about being single at 39 is if I go to somebody's house and I'm like, all right, we got to go. And they're like, I'm still getting ready. I'm like, okay, goodbye. Like, I'm gone. Like, I'm not going to hang around. And so it's like, oh God, is that going to, like, has it now just become a choice between being, single forever or actually having to compromise and be patient?
One of my requirements now for dating is the woman has got to be confident in herself to not wear makeup. Like, to just like, if we're going out to like a nice dinner or something like that, but like a Sunday brunch, you don't need 45 minutes of makeup time.
Yeah, well, that's because your last girlfriend, she wore a ton of base. Yeah, if she sat in your car, she would leave a face print on the back headrest.
Yeah.
She was nice, though.
She was very nice. At a clothing store, Harris tries on a pair of white slacks while a bouncy, dim-witted shopgirl named SanDeE marks them for tailoring. That evening, as Harris sees Hiya written on a electronic freeway sign, the magical electronic sign says it helps people who are in trouble and gives Harris a riddle to solve. Soon after, Sarah sees Harris's wacky weather report and asks to interview him for her article. Harris and his best friend Ariel go to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, where Ariel records Harris with a video camera as he roller skates through the galleries.
Okay, so people who haven't seen this movie in a while or have never seen it, the way I'm going to describe to you is it is like a treadmill that you put up to like top speed, and then you try to jump on the treadmill. You come into this movie and you're like, what the fuck is going on? This world is,
I wrote that down.
Is this a dream? You don't know what it is. So it'll take you a second to get your legs under you. So I'm catching up. I'm on the treadmill and I'm actually starting to enjoy it. I'm like, this is kind of funny. And then the movie just starts throwing me dialogue that I'm like, oh my God. When Sarah and Roland are at like the hot dog place and they're talking about, when they got divorced, and this is actual dialogue. I went roller skating once at the Brooklyn Roller Dome. It was awful. I was completely out of control. I couldn't stop. I couldn't turn. And I went slamming into this 8-foot-tall black guy with an emerald green satin jumpsuit and matching sneakers. And I said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Can you help me?" And he looked down at me with these deeply stoned eyes and said, "Little lady, let your mind go and your body will follow." And that's just fucking knocking me. I'm like, come on, please.
It's these pretentious moments of that dialogue and the fact that he's at this art gallery museum roller skating. And again, I know this is a pet project of Steve Martin. And if you know Steve Martin, like how he's really big into art, and like, I wonder if this is some sort of like he's infusing autobiographical details of his life into this story, but it comes off as unrelatable.
It's just unrealistic.
Yeah, you go roller skating in an art gallery, getting your ass kicked out is what's going to happen.
It's cringe level 3000 is really what it is.
It really is.
It really is. And they do this not once, but they do it again. Yeah, I don't like it, but I know who I do like is SanDeE, a young Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, Emmet, baby, we got you on this one. You fucking bullseye, hit the nail on the head by giving us this gift of a young Sarah Jessica Parker on screen. And I related to it hardcore. My life has had its share of SanDeEs. And they're those women who have like more excitement and energy and sex appeal than all the other women in your life. But for some reason, can never be a permanent part of your life. And it's not that they're too dumb or too promiscuous or that they're irritatingly enthusiastic. It's just for some reason, they're not right for you. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, maybe it's because you're intimidated by the thought of keeping up with them and that level of vivaciousness and that level of energy. Or maybe it's because you just feel more alone when you're with them because they're so different from you. But I'm really glad that LA Story did one thing really, really well. And that's exploring what a lot of 80s movies didn't, which is a lot of the 80s movies, the ultimate goal is to end up with that sexy, energetic young person. And this movie is basically looking at being the sexiest, youngest, prettiest, most fun woman doesn't always make you the right one for a romance. And so it's a truth of life, unfortunately. Like, it'd be so much easier if that shit would just work out. But LA Story shows it doesn't.
But I wonder if that's because you yourself, Gene, you're an extrovert in a lot of ways. You like to live life to the fullest. You organize pickleball tonight with all your friends and then had to cancel. If I know that I have to record the podcast, like, well, I'm only doing that tonight. I'm clearing my schedule, But even if I didn't have to record the podcast, I'd be like, I'm going to watch Netflix tonight. I find it hard to believe that someone like yourself, you feel even intimidated by people like this.
I don't know if it's intimidated. It's more like I guess maybe in a sense it is. It's like it's their optimism toward life and their easygoing attitude, right? Where they're like, everything's okay and I'm having such a great time. And I'm like, I can't be like that all the time. And when is it going to grind on you, right?
So I don't want people to think that, SanDeE in the movie, she's the young, attractive girl, but I don't normally find Sarah Jessica Parker hot. I would never be like, oh, I love Sarah Jessica Parker. It's her attitude. It's her personality. She's carefree. She's adventurous. She's spontaneous. She's fun. So I think, she's pretty, but that's not what I liked about her. And instead of me being like, oh, I love her, she's great, it made me kind of sad. I started to sit there and become like introspective. I was like, all right, I'm 45. I was like, I used to be spontaneous. I used to be adventurous. I used to enjoy going out and seeing people. What happened to me? Like, as I've gotten older, this podcast is like one of the few ways that I can vent. I used to be like out there, social butterfly. Now I'm not like that as much. And SanDeE made me really want to get better. I want to re-find my inner SanDeE. I want to become free-spirited. I want to have that spark for life again. So after watching this, that's my goal.
Big I, little I, big B, little I, big G,
yes.
Big D.
But another thing I found myself questioning with this movie is not only where's my inner SanDeE, but he's not happy with his life. Harris doesn't want to be this wacky ass weather guy. He feels like he's wasting his life. And how many of us just every day we drive to a job that doesn't fire us up? We don't really want to be there. We just have to pay the bills. And you go through the motions and, your career just moves progressively forward. Why don't we just stop and do something? And I had one of these moments in my life. My senior year in college, we went to Cancun, like 25 of us. And I can remember sitting on the beach and me and my buddy Pat, we dropped acid and we're having this great, like, introspective thought. We said, man, why, dude? Why? We should just stay here, live on the beach and do hair wraps.
Yeah.
Be a good life. Yeah, my life now would suck, but why don't we do more things that are fun? Why do we let life fucking suck our SanDeE dry?
Well, I think for the
suck our SanDeE dry.
I think for the three of us, though, this podcast is like Fight Club. Like, we go to work and like our eyes are all like black and we're all beat up and shit. And we're like just force feeding ourselves coffee to stay awake and stuff. And they're like, dude, are you all right? Like, yeah.
Yes.
And we can't talk about our secret lies This is our hair wraps on the beach, man.
It is.
Yeah, but like I feel like in order to be a SanDeE, you have to be at least an LA 8. You know, no, you have to be an LA 8.
No,
yeah,
you do not.
SanDeE, the personality is more important than the looks.
You think so?
100%.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Listen, we're halfway through this pod and we haven't talked about the fucking freeway sign, so I'm going to bring it up. This is a central focus of the film, this magical freeway sign that talks to Steve Martin and other characters. And I'm like, what is this all about? There's got to be some deeper symbolism here. And so I did a little research, and this movie, get this, allegedly is a twist on Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm a big Shakespeare fan, not a huge fan of the comedies, but a big Shakespeare fan. Did not get that at all, other than like the magic. But if that's what they're going for, they blew it. Like there's a little magic in the traffic sign thing, but I felt like this prop, this traffic sign distracted from the story more than it helped. Like overall, LA Story has some pretty powerful writing in the dialogue between the characters. And I did feel, I don't know if you guys did, that there was some genuine romance that unfortunately got buried beneath this light up sign that's just a complete disappointment. I expected more from it.
Well, it's not only that, but like, what are the powers of the sign? Like, I get that, you know, it can talk back to you, it can hear you, but it can also control your car.
I don't know. It also plays the bagpipes. Again, like you said, Gene, it was distracting. You didn't need it, but it's because back then, like, what technologically could you have that was going to communicate with you?
You didn't need anything.
So where is he? Okay, so you just want.
Like it could have been a black homeless guy on the side of LA. You wanted a black homeless guy. You said earlier, you're like, I wish there were more black homeless guys.
Black homeless guy.
That's what you said is all around in LA.
All right, here, I got one for you. He's a meteorologist. In his weather reports, it comes up.
I like it. Yes.
Yeah, it could have been in his weather reports. Yep.
I like it.
Yep.
His teleprompter, whatever.
Hey, we are popular in LA. Anyone out there who wants us to do a treatment, hosts at shatthemovies.com. We'll do it up for you.
Later, Sarah and Harris meet for the interview. He takes her on a driving tour of the city, including a stop at a cemetery. He asks if she's seen anyone, and she says yes. A producer asks Harry to do the weather report during the weekend, but Harris insists on pre-taping, promising that the weather will not change. A surprise rainstorm ensues, and when Harris goes to pick up his altered slacks, SanDeE apologizes that the pants are not ready and takes his phone number instead. The talking freeway sign tells Harris he should have gotten SanDeE's phone number, and then SanDeE calls him to ask him out. SanDeE tells Harris she's in an open relationship. The next day, Trudi reveals that she has been having an affair with Frank Swan for 3 years, his agent. Harris tells the freeway sign that he is now free from his relationship and his agent. The sign responds that the weather will change Harris's life twice. Soon after, Harris is fired because his pre-taped weather report failed to predict rain.
Okay, so I don't think our therapy session here would be complete without us talking about another thing that I think the three of us have done. Harris, he is so happy that the breakup happens. When he finds out she's cheating, he's elated. He's relieved. He's going to be free. Why is there so many times that, I know I've done it in the past, you get comfortable. Roger's the biggest one with this, is you get into a relationship, you get comfortable, you're like, you know what, everything's going okay, it could be worse. Why do we take that time? Why don't we just cut it off? Why don't we just break up ourselves? Why do we require someone else to do it with us?
So I had a breakup where I thought about all of this, and I was like, you know what, for once in my life, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm just going to sit down in a very calm, polite, and kind way and saying, this isn't working out for me, and I'd like to leave the relationship. I wish you the best, all that stuff, because it still goes horribly. Like, that's almost worse. They're like, fuck you. And, I gave you the best years of my life. There's no good way. So I think the reason why is that it's always worse than you think it's going to be.
So I know I'm not really supposed to talk about this because my current relationship listens to the podcast, which really is the first time in my life that anyone that I've dated has listened to or come see me do anything creative. And she hates it when I talk about her, but this is strictly just to relate to it. This is just strictly to relate to the podcast.
You're sabotaging it.
I gotta help my buddy Gene out. The only relationship that I've had a clean adult breakup was the J word. And then we lived together for like another 2 months and it was fine, but yet it still ended to where she didn't want anything to do with me. And I guess that's normal. I don't know. But like, even if you have a clean break, I kind of agree with Gene. Even if they don't immediately break down and tell you you're the worst person in the world, they will do petty bullshit.
Wow.
We had like joint photo albums on social media and in the cloud. She deleted all of our shared albums. I lost 3 to 4 years of my life, like like pictures of me on like vacation in Europe, completely lost. Like just one day, she didn't even call me to be like, "Hey, do you want these photos?" or anything like that. Like I've taken stuff over to Megan's and been like, "Hey, this is your stuff." And I don't know, like I feel like you can be an adult after a relationship. You can be friends. I don't know. Is that weird?
You're weird.
Emmett, if you're listening to this podcast and thinking that Roger has a lot to say about LA Story, it's because Roger is Harris. Like after this breakup scene and Harris is doing the happy dance out in the street, after Trudi says she's cheating on him, that's exactly how Roger reacts as soon as one of his grueling, unhappy relationships ends.
Yeah.
He also gets very nervous when he likes people. He starts to talk too much. He uses comedy to deflect from the things that scare him in life. Like this is a movie about Roger Roper finding love in Los Angeles.
100%.
But there are fun bits about this movie. You see Rick Moranis in the graveyard sighting doing kind of a Mary Poppins chimney sweeper impersonation.
Mary Poppins chimney sweeper? Yeah. He's the gravedigger from Hamlet.
Yeah, I know. But but that's also Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is a Shakespeare retelling as well.
Ooh, that's a nice flip on that one. I like it. The grave of Shakespeare was, in my book, the greatest part of this movie. It's really smart stuff. It's layers on layers. So Rick Moranis is using an English accent that is worse than Roger's when he, Steve Martin, and Victoria Tennant directly quote the gravedigger scene from Hamlet. And what's great about it is I'm like, so what's this all about? Steve Martin's trying to tell us something here. And I think what it is that we're watching Hollywood actors in 1991, an era with like, where T2 is like, the top movie. Shakespeare is all but dead to cinema. And they're quoting one of Shakespeare's most powerful passages on his grave, which is in Los Angeles.
Right.
Like it's intensely intelligent. And I guess, this is the part of the pretense that kind of works for me. But unfortunately, again, like a lot of the romance, just buried in a bunch of other sight gags.
Well, SanDeE urges Harris to get a colonic irrigation, and they go to the clinic together. They make plans for dinner, but Harris cannot get a reservation at Le Idiot. So he makes plan for a weekend getaway instead. At a museum, Roland and Sarah peruse art while Ariel records more video of Harris on his roller skates. Harris accidentally runs into Sarah, who invites him to join her and Roland for dinner. They go to Le Idiot, and afterwards, Sarah gives him a ride home. Sarah's car leads them to the freeway sign. The sign tells Harris to kiss Sarah, and he does. Sarah agrees to go to a fundraiser with Harris. On the following evening, he agrees to pick her up, and Harris overhears Sarah playing the tuba. At the fundraising dinner, Harris pretends to be ill and lures Sarah outside where they kiss. He tells her to let her mind and body go. See, little callback there. They return to the table disheveled just as the long-winded host finishes his speech.
So for me, the high point of this block is the high colonic. I vaguely knew what it was, but I was like, you know what? Let me do some research into it. So it's kind of a colon irrigation. You take a lot of water, you put it in a tube, I guess like 25 gallons, and they just flush you out, completely flush all your intestines out. Sometimes they add stuff like herbs, coffee, vitamins, enzymes. It's supposed to, clean your body out of toxins and bacteria, but, a lot of doctors say it doesn't do any good. But to me, I think it sounds interesting. If you have, say, at Thanksgiving, that first trip to the bathroom, sometimes don't you leave a little relieved? Gene, you're making a face. Have either of you had one of these done?
I don't know why Gene's making a face. Our fucking name is Shat the Movies, but I feel like I would do a high colonic before Thanksgiving so that I could like clear space for the feast.
I feel like you'd feel lighter. I think it would kind of like, it's like a shower early in the morning, cold shower, wake you up.
Yeah, my face isn't about the fact we're talking about poop. It's just it's a biological concern in the sense that you've got a very sensitive biome going on in your gut, and you shoot that stuff up in your intestines. There's good bacteria that's going to get flushed out of there as well. It's not like only bad stuff is coming out.
Yeah, that's what they say is part of the dangers of doing too many colonics is that it does flush away the good bacteria. But once in a while is actually quite healthy.
But I got to ask, how does someone, like if I go in there, what does my attendant do?
Well, they back up the truck and they get the big hose.
Like what I mean, do I like sit on a table? Do I lay down? How does this like basically work?
Yeah, so I think you lay down
flat.
Yeah, first it's a flush in,
okay,
and then they suck it out because you're like it's like a giant enema. Have you ever had an enema?
No.
As a child, I remember getting a lot of enemas. I don't know. I don't know.
Told you they were.
I don't know if I was abused or whatnot, but I remember my grandmother loved enemas. She would give me an enema, and then I would have to poop a lot.
It's kindergarten cop.
It's a lot of It's almost like doing the bidet. Like you'll get water up the beehole.
Yeah, I changed my mind. I don't want to do it because I don't want some attendant having to be there and watch that. Maybe alone I would do it.
We should do this together while I'm in town. We should go get a colonic together.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
I'm gonna get you a colonic gift card for Christmas.
Hey, Gene, how about that cameo parade?
Yeah, we talked about how this was kind of a pet project of Steve Martin's, and you can tell that a lot of other actors in Hollywood seem to think it was a very good idea because this movie is loaded with cameos. You've got Paula Abdul, Chevy Chase, Woody Harrelson, Martin Lawrence, but the big daddy of them all was Patrick Stewart playing the maitre d' at Le Idiot. That entire sequence had me dying. So it starts out with Harris on the phone, and he's calling in for reservation, and they start asking questions like how much he earns and where he lives, and you're hearing this all like over the phone. And then they ask him like how much he sold his condo for, and he eventually has to show up at like the Nazi bank, the Fourth Reich bank, where he's being interrogated about what he'll order, and it's Patrick Stewart who's looking good.
He looks
in
great.
A mustache and a suit. I wish he would do more comedy because he's hilarious.
Yeah. Patrick Stewart is a treasure of our generation, and I'm really going to be sad when he's gone.
It's odd. It's odd. He still looked like an older man, but just like a younger older man. He didn't look young.
Yeah, he's like Steve Martin. It's the same thing.
This is before Steve Martin had a toupee, right? Steve Martin wears a toupee now. Yeah, Steve Martin wears a toupee now.
No, and I said he wore a hat all the time before. I remembered now it was the arrow.
That's what I said.
It was the arrow around his head.
Yeah.
But in this scene, they go out on a date and they go back to her place, and he says, "You know what? We've had a good date. Do you want to come in?" And there's that awkward moment. Why? Why do people do this? Why do you say, "Do you want to come up for a drink?" Why do you say, "Do you want to come in?" What we're really asking is, would you like to come in and have sex right now? Why do we play the game?
See, I didn't know that. When I invite somebody in, or if somebody invites me in, I think it's just because like we went to do the thing we were going to do, mini golf, the movies, a concert, drinking and running, whatever. And now that time is over, but we're not done hanging out. So do you want to come in for a drink?
No,
sex always?
Yeah, this is the end of the day. This is the end of the date. We're saying goodbye.
Yeah.
This isn't, hey, we played mini golf and now we're going to go in and watch TV. This is, I'm dropping you off. Goodbye. The invite to come in is a question. Do you want to have sex?
Agreed.
Both people know it. Why don't we just say?
I got a lot of phone calls to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't be that oblivious, Gene. Come on.
No, listen, I quite regularly will go after a date to somebody's house, hang out for 2 or 3 hours, sometimes till the sun comes up, and then go home.
Yeah.
All right. So there was just who was
John Oliver.
No, not on John Oliver. This was on Your Mom's House podcast. Nikki Glaser, the comedian Nikki Glaser, is talking about how she went on a date with this guy. They had hooked up in the past, but they weren't dating or actively dating. And she was excited that they were going to go out on a date because she's like, well, I haven't had sex in a while, and maybe this will be a time that we get physical. And he invites her to his hotel room. So she's like, great, sex is on. Kind of like it's culturally accepted that when you're invited in, that's what's going to happen. And he proceeds to like, they just lay in the bed to talk some more. And she's like, well, is like for an hour, they're just talking. And she's like, is this guy going to fucking make a move? Like I'm giving him all these signals. And at this point, she's just like, I'm pissed that the guy isn't doing anything. So are you that kind of guy, Gene, where
He's that guy.
Are you the kind of guy that a girl will come in, try to give you signals and you'll be like, let's just talk. Let's just stay up till 6 a.m. I kind of feel like that's your move.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of the signals.
But you choose not to pick up on them? You choose to ignore them?
Well, two things. One, I didn't know "Do you want to come in" was one of the signals. But once I'm inside and for like we're listening to music and they're drinking wine or whatever, and then they say things like "I want to come all over your dick," then I'm like, well, that's probably a signal. But I'm not going to take it. No, I mean, I decide when it's going to happen.
Oh my god! You are such a
bad. Oh, what a tease!
So disgusting.
Such
I'm
a
the
tease.
gatekeeper to love.
No wonder you've got some phone calls to make.
Exactly.
I remember when I mean, every date that I've gone on, my move now is just the consent move. Like I'm just like, do you want to make out?
The contract.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a move.
No, it's not a move. No, I mean, you know how guys talk about their moves. What I'm saying is, guys, yeah, but like guys are like, well, you got to tickle them a little bit, or you like, got to touch their leg or whatever. I'm just like, fuck that. Like, I'm like, do you want to make out? Like, I look at them in the eyes. I'm like, I want to kiss you right now.
Oh, shut up. I'd rather picture my parents having sex.
No, you would.
Than you getting romantic.
I'm going to send you videos.
So we mentioned all the actors who make cameos in this movie. One person we didn't mention is Richard E. Grant, and he plays Roland. So when I first looked into LA Story, I saw it had 3 names that I knew for sure. It was Steve Martin, Marilu Henner, and Sarah Jessica Parker. I didn't notice at the time because it's such a kind of generic name that Richard E. Grant was in this. And Richard E. Grant, if you don't know, is one of the funniest humans on earth. His first motion picture was in 1987. It was called With Nail and I. And if you haven't seen it, it's great. It's one of my favorite British comedies of all time. This guy's ability to convey anemic optimism or like enthused revulsion and his perfect elocution when he delivers lines, it blows my mind. And I just found out that he's going to be in Rise of Skywalker coming out later this year. He's going to be playing General Pride, who is the leader of the First Order. So I'm super geeked about this.
Oh, good. We get another leader of the First Order. Fuck Star Wars.
Dude, like Roland, like I started off disliking everybody in the cast. At about 80 minutes, I fell in love with him. I didn't even realize what he had been doing the entire movie. He always spoke the truth. He never lied. It was like he was missing that internal filter. If you asked him a question, he would just give you the right answer. So when they're walking on the beach and Sarah says she's cold, she asks him to go up to the hotel room to get the sweater. He goes up and comes running down, and he goes, "Oh, I'm very hot now from running."
It's the best scene.
It's really so good. It's so good.
He's like, I'll run up to it right now. And then he just takes off.
And it hit me. I was like, this dude's been saying what he thinks throughout the entire movie, and I didn't pick up on it.
It is good. He's a funny character.
So good.
He's a really good character. Well, the next day, Harris tells SanDeE he cannot go away with her that weekend because he has seen someone else. When he admits that Sarah is going on a trip with her ex-husband, SanDeE convinces him it is only fair that they have a vacation too. Harris and SanDeE unwittingly end up at the same Santa Barbara resort as Sarah and Roland. Unaware that Harris is next door, Roland and Sarah overhear him and SanDeE having sex and are inspired to do the same. Afterwards, Harris and Sarah are dismayed when they bump into each other in the hallway. Harris begs Sarah to stay in Los Angeles, saying he wants to get married, have kids, and grow old together. For Sarah, however, their fling is everything she didn't want: pain, lying, and complications. Checking out of the hotel, Roland runs into Harris and gives him the sad news that Sarah has decided to go back to London as soon as possible.
So when everyone was over at my house watching Watchmen, the movie, the Zack Snyder movie, there's a scene where Night Owl and the Silk Spectre, spoiler alert, are having sex inside of the flying vehicle Archimedes. And it's so uncomfortable. They're doing it to Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah. And everybody in the room is just like, ugh. And I'm like, why do they have sex scenes in movies? I hate it. And for years, I puzzled over why movies include sex scenes, because they're never long enough to rub one out, at least as an adult. and they don't really add anything to the story. Like, you could just tell me, yeah, and then they had sex. And I go, okay, I get it. I doubt the actors are like super jazzed about doing them. So why do them? And then came LA Story. And in the case of Sarah Jessica Parker, that screen when she's bouncing all the rooms, she gets in bed with Steve Martin. I'm like, hell yeah, we're going to see a sex scene. I wanted to see that bouncy energy unleashed in a big old nasty middle-aged man freak scene, and nothing.
I never thought that I'd wanted to see sex less on screen than when we reviewed Hoo-ah!
Yeah, Al Pacino.
Al Pacino in Heat.
Yep.
And then this scene with Steve Martin, I was like, oh, please, Steve Martin's not going to have a love scene, is he? And he really doesn't.
Well, thanks.
He like brings the blankets over. But they proceed to do, which is my favorite thing. I love hotel sex. My second favorite thing is hearing other people have hotel sex. It's kind of like, you know, like we all have kind of like our weird little things that we don't tell anyone. Well, I'm admitting it here today. I absolutely love it. I don't want to hear maybe my roommates, if I like when I was living with DJ Big D, but that's kind of like my weird thing. I love hearing other people in hotel rooms have sex. Are you guys as freaky as I am?
Dude, I am so happy to own my own home, but when I lived in apartments, there was a certain magic to that life. Like, there was making friends in the lobby, there was knowing your neighbors really well, and there was hearing people bone. And I've actually been the beneficiary of the aphrodisiac effect of sex heard through a wall. So Stephanie on the third floor, I salute you.
So it's interesting you say that. So these are actually people that you knew.
Stephanie lived above me, and she and her boyfriend would just go at it. So Maya, who lived 2 doors down, was hanging out in my room. We heard Stephanie doing it, which caused us to do it. Yeah. And then about 2 months later, Stephanie went through a breakup, and I did it with her in that room too. So
yeah, but it's at that point,
friends.
It's all fucking theatrics. When you guys get into a competition, it's like, oh, I'm gonna show off. I'm gonna do this. That's all bullshit, dude. Come on.
No, I mean, that's part of the fun. That's part of the sport.
Big D, where's your inner Sandy?
She's dead. My inner Sandy's
Don't
dead.
let her go.
She's gone.
Well, at his job as a news anchorman, Harris mopes while Sarah heads for the airport. Another rainstorm hits, and she changes her mind. Harris takes Sarah back to the freeway sign, which tells him to unscramble how daddy is doing. Sarah figures out the riddle by unscrambling the phrase, and the sign is telling Harris to sing doo-wah-diddy. Harris and Sarah kiss beside the road, and Harris closes the film with a final voiceover narration in which he states that it is sometime in the future there is someone for everyone, and that he will never forget the night when he learned that romance does exist deep in the heart of Los Angeles. End movie.
So, Gene, you mentioned how this is a great cast, and it is a lot of talented actors. But I feel like they made a major mistake in casting Victoria Tennant as the romantic, counterpart to Steve Martin. There is zero chemistry. Absolutely none. They have very little fun together. They're from 2 different worlds. I'm not buying the fact that Harris loves her. Contrast that to when SanDeE comes on screen and he meets her when she's doing his pants. There's some spark there right off the bat. They even put Sarah Jessica Parker on the cover of the box. You can see it. There was something special there. I just didn't feel like they ended up belonging together. I found myself thinking like, no, dump Sarah. Go with SanDeE.
Yeah, it was a nice fairy tale ending, but I was kind of hoping Sarah would fly away and Harris would realize that he's got this hot, LA savvy, connected, trivia loving match in SanDeE rather than falling for his English grandmother.
Hey, and you keep, just so people don't attack us here, you keep talking about SanDeE being hot. SanDeE's also bright. SanDeE's on it. SanDeE knows what the relationship is. When he says, I can't do that, that'd be wrong. I'd be using you to go away to hurt him. She's like, I know that. I'm completely cool with it. She knows the relationship is transactional. She's not being used.
And she fucking knows everybody in LA. She's like, what's up, food cart lady? What's up, dude at the restaurant?
Yeah.
She's grateful. She gets excited about going to the resort.
It's fun.
The most honest I've ever been with women, outside of the one that I'm currently with, is with women like SanDeE.
I wish I had like some kind of like doctor's therapeutic sound effect.
No, because you have to be honest with women like that. You're like when he says, I'm too old for you. Or like we're going away. I'm only going to be using you. And she's like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Like anytime in my previous life where I've dated girls like that, and I've been just straight up and honest, that has attracted them to me. Whereas these women like a Sarah or like someone in like that vein where I'm like, well, I want to settle down with this person. I find myself falling into old traps where you're like, oh, I can't tell her this or she won't like me.
Guess what? You want to know why it works? Because it's actually a trusting relationship. Both SanDeE and Harris are completely honest with each other.
Right.
There's no bullshit games. They tell each other what's going on. They don't hide anything. And that's why they have fun. It's no dancing around the facts.
Right.
But in the end, guys, as we wrap it up, I got to talk about the one thing I've been holding back for the last hour. And that is I fucking hate LA. And this movie, I'm going to be biased. I'll admit it. This movie highlighted all the things I detest about Los Angeles. Like Sarah's whole journalist role is pretty dumb, but she does surface one truth in her bizarre like tape recorder monologue, which by the way, what the fuck is an article about LA? Like who in London's like, I want to read an article about Los Angeles. It makes no sense, but she boils it down to an evidence of good writing in this movie. She says Los Angeles is a place where people go after their dreams and care a lot less about what others think of those dreams. And that's absolutely true. It affords a certain kind of freedom, but what you ultimately see is a city full of fucking selfish people.
Yeah.
And the selfishness produces some pretty obnoxious human beings. I will stick with my Arizona shame cocoon, where people are conscious of their impact on others around them.
There's one thing I do love about LA, and it's the song by Randy Newman.
Oh, shut up.
I love LA. Are you kidding me? I love that song.
Okay. So Gene, I need to go to LA because, I mean, this is my stereotypical image of the people in Los Angeles. And I know it's not real. You know, that's maybe just one tiny sliver of people out there. But if they can compare with the assholes in Miami, I don't think that's possible.
Miami's trying to be
Miami
LA.
is the worst.
It's trying to be LA.
If you go down there for like one night out, I'm good for another year. Oh, it's so fake. It's bad. I can't picture LA being anything like that.
LA does have a fucking fantastic goth scene, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah, if my SanDeE ever wakes up, you could take me out there.
You know how like New York is pretentious, like in some aspects, but it's also like real and gritty. Like you know what I mean? Like there's
like Ninja Turtles.
There's like Ninja Turtles. There's an authenticity to New York, whereas LA is everything is fake.
Can I remind you, we have a good sized listening audience in LA. LA, we still like you.
Or at least Orange County.
Yeah, we still like you.
Do you guys know what the meaning of doo-wah diddy means? The whole like culmination of Did You Daddy or whatever. It's doo-wah diddy. The song actually relates to how a young man sees a woman in the street just singing those words, apparently just out of contentment for just the sheer joy of singing. And that's kind of the message, is that you just sometimes just need to do that. Like that's the purpose of the movie.
Also tubas. They're funny, huh? Yeah. 1991? It's a tuba joke.
Do you know I actually dated a girl who played the accordion?
Did you really?
That was awkward.
What did she look like?
Oh, she was cute.
Did she have bangs?
Time, but I mean, it was just she'd be practicing, and I'd be like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
Was she a Swede?
No, she was Italian.
Oh,
okay. Oh, yeah. Did she have like a little monkey, like a little pet monkey? She's standing outside of the pizza shop collecting coins.
No, she had a little mustache.
Did she?
Yeah.
Did you ask her to wax
New York's gritty.
New York's gritty. Well, now it's time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 0 wipes is a perfect movie. 5 wipes is a terrible movie. We'll start with you, Big D. How many wipes do you give LA Story?
So I have never simultaneously liked and hated a movie at the exact same time. I think some of the bits in the movie, they're unoriginal, like Beethoven's balls or Roland, when they hear the chiming. What is that? Oh, that's my testicles. Or the traffic signs, like walk. That shit to me, it's stupid. It's predictable. It's pretentious even. But I think the narration by Steve Martin, it's profound. And there's a lot of truth in what he's saying. And I think it does emotionally connect. I liked Sarah Jessica Parker and the way that Steve Martin interacted. It made me question the way that SanDeE lives her lives. I really, in the end, found myself liking it. I thought I was going to despise it. I thought I was going to have to turn it off. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about. But the fact that I ended up buying it because I couldn't rent it on a streaming service. So I bought the standard digital copy for $7.99, and I'm happy to go back and watch it again this time. And so for that, I'm shocked. I didn't hate it. And I think going back from the beginning, knowing that the treadmill's on full blast and I could watch it from the beginning, I might enjoy it more. But in the end, I think it's brave for what it tried to do. I think it's original. Is it perfect? No. But I think 2.5. I think it's a good movie, something I'd be willing to see again.
I like to imagine that there's a little Christmas tree at Steve Martin's house, and it's wired up to the internet. And every time somebody orders this movie, it lights up, and it's never lit up before. And you just made that dream come true.
Big D, I tend to agree with you. LA Story is a lighthearted fantasy that asks us to accept one small possibility and promises us we may find contentment if we keep an open mind. As I mentioned before, Martin says in the past that he worked on the screenplay on and off for 7 years. And I feel like you can really sense that in this movie, that it really was a passion project of his. I think he infused a lot of his own experiences in LA as the film unfolds. It isn't thin or superficial, even though if you didn't catch all the intricacies of the plot, you might think that it is. And there's an abundance of things going on screen. And I understand what they're going for. But again, as I said, the tagline of this podcast is we ask ourselves, do the movies we love still hold up? It doesn't hold up in that it really is stuck in that era. But maybe that's the point of the movie. I think it's fine. I both love and hate this. So I guess the appropriate thing is just to wipe it right down the middle. Like you, Big D, I'm also going to give it 2.5 wipes. So that leaves you, Gene.
Well, guys, this movie, I think, succeeds as a love story, and it benefits from some really smart dialogue. But I stack it up against other romantic comedies that had strong dialogue and a good love story. And it's not When Harry Met Sally. It's not as good as Annie Hall. I felt like the fairy tale aspect was unnecessary and quite distracting. And what I felt like was I got in a car with like an older person who had a really good heart and a very interesting life and some charm, but they kept telling me jokes and expecting me to politely laugh. And I was just stuck in the car with them for 90 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm taking an Uber next time. So for me, this was a 3 wiper.
All right. So 2.5 wipes, 2.5 and 3 divided by 3 gives us our overall Shat score, which is what, Gene?
It is 2.6 repeating wipes for LA Story.
And if we were to compare that against all the movies we've done here at Shat the Movies, where does that rank LA Story, Big D?
Oh, God, I don't even want to say this. Okay, so this ranks it in the 75 spot. It is tied with Top Gun, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Ghostbusters, Poltergeist, Roadhouse, and My Cousin Vinny.
I think Ghostbusters is better than this.
I think all those movies are better than this.
But I think upon subsequent watchings, I gave it a high score because I feel like the script is good and I understand what they were going for.
I think it was original. I think the way you make it better is if you had 2 writers in the room who were not from LA.
Or not Steve Martin.
Get somebody in there who could be like, guess what? That's too inside baseball. That's not going to... Get some writers who weren't just there. It was like a big room of writers sitting around just with their hands down each other's pants. Get a fresh voice.
Or just add a sex scene for me.
Without Steve Martin.
Without Steve Martin.
So all of our issues are with Steve Martin, who wrote and starred in this movie.
Yeah, there's one of those surreal scenes where Steve Martin turns into an invisible man and has sex with Sarah Jessica Parker. And we get to see
it's
that.
the Invisible Man with Chevy Chase, who makes a cameo in this movie.
There you go. Bingo.
Yeah, there you go. All right. I mean, it feels right. I mean, a few of those movies I think are better, but I mean, listen, it's a contentious score.
I was expecting it to get like a 4.5.
No, it's
I think
not.
this is a miracle.
No, it's not bad. All right. Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our shout outs and go through those. Gene, what's a shout out?
Raj, a shout out is our way of saying thank you for visiting shatthemovies.com, where you can find past movies, vote for future movies, and find ways to support the podcast. If you would like to hear your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com, find any of the spots where you can enter a shout out and put your name in there. Big D, there's also a quick link to the shout outs now.
Yeah, of course it is. www.shatthemovies.com/shout out.
I probably should have remembered that. Anyway, this week's shout outs go out to Big D is right. Spaceballs sucks.
Fuck yeah.
How terrible.
Kieran, the cruise ship photog. Brittany, Roger, you owe me child support, Alberts.
Maybe.
Harry D, dick pubes. Dr. Freckle from Amsterdam. Tiny D, Dick Peterman. Lawrence Larry Lairster the Lair. Teeny tiny Mark Francois from Bellandville. Jeff Wildman, have I done this yet? Damn it, Gene, it's GIF with a hard G. Ryan's friend Patrick from Broadcast Engineering. Brian from Cali. Gemma, or perhaps Gemma. Amanda. And Sean motherfucking Davis. Thanks, everyone, for sending in your shout-outs. Again, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com, find the shout-out box, or go to www.shatthemovies.com/shout-outs and get your name on the pod.
Our shout-outs have become increasingly more fun, and I'm glad that we do them on the podcast. I really am.
Yeah, they used to just be racist and cruel.
Yeah, I'm like, I really enjoy them now. All right, Big D, what's the next movie we're doing?
Oh, so the next movie we're doing was commissioned by John Newman as a present for his cousin and sister. So this is a 2-for-1. He's going to get two people really happy with him or really upset with him for commissioning this. After losing yet another job, George wonders if there's a career that can handle his outrageous personality. When George's uncle hands him the deed to the local TV station, George creates a series of television shows based on satire and hyperactive humor with the help of his best friend Bob. However, a rival station's bitter CEO tries to destroy George's wacky programming, forcing him to fight back. Again, it was commissioned by John Newman as a present for his cousin and sister. It was released in July of 1989, and it only made $6 million at the box office, so it's not one of the bigger movies, but it is a beloved movie.
This is a cult classic that I'm so excited we're doing to the podcast. I don't think I've ever seen this movie in its entirety, but people talk about just the brilliancy of this movie, so I'm excited to see it from start to finish. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to join us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle @Shat the Movies. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies. Our website, once again, is shatthemovies.com. You can email us your suggestions and feedback at hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can also support the podcast through commissions by clicking on our support page on the website. You can also complete a survey for free that will help us get advertisers. All the links and information are on our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Find all the information, past episodes, and viewer email. We get so many great viewer emails, theories. Watchmen is one of those shows where it's kind of, you're doing detective work along the side and kind of figuring out what's going on, a la Westworld. So all of our viewer mail and listener mail that we receive goes on the website. You can interact with other fans, theories, if you're fans of the show there. You can also listen to Gene and the King Bee's inaugural episode of the Newsstand, where they read and respond to the best listener emails. It's a great episode. I just listened to it on the way over here.
Thank you.
And it was awesome. So great job there. You're doing a great job producing over there, Gene. So hats off to you. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene SanDeE Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following review of this commissioned movie. Take care, good night, and good luck.
Listen, let's get one thing straight. Guns don't kill people. I do.
Channel 62 has the lowest ratings in the history of television. What they need is a new station manager.
No, not him. Forget it. No way.
A man of action. A man of courage. A man of vision.
What's your name?
Billy.
Billy what?
What they get is a man so desperate, he'll put anyone on the air.
Hey, Stanley.
Yeah, George?
How'd you like your own TV show?
Okay. You get the drink from the fire hose! Okay, you ready? Yeah! Open wide!
He's Conan, the librarian.
Today we're teaching poodles how to fly.
We beat out the networks.
George Newman. He starts where the others stop.
We're the #1 station in town.
Orion Pictures presents Weird Al Yankovic in UHF, the movie.